Good morning, boys and girls. It's Miss Strickland here to do your reading lesson. So go ahead and go get your copy of the Red and Yellow Coat. Remember, it's a folk tale. And you're also going to need page 154, which are your questions that some of the questions that go along with the story. Okay, so today, as you can see, we are working on questioning again. We are working on how and what questions today. And we're going to talk about how to go back and look in the story to find your answer. But before we do that, let's review what a folk tale is. Remember yesterday, before we got started, I talked about what a folk tale is, and a folk tale is just a story that has been passed down orally at first for years and years and years until someone finally writes it down. So that means it probably has changed some, because when you tell something orally or out loud using your own words, sometimes you change it a little bit. So that's obviously, or certainly, what could have happened with these folk tales that have been passed down like that before they got written down. So, and remember, our three main characters are Naby, Tim, and Tricky Guy. So today our questions are going to kind of revolve or circle up around them. So get your questions handy, page 154. And remember, Tricky Guy wanted to trick Naby and Tim. And so how does he do this? So question 6 says, how does Tricky Guy trick the friends into arguing? That's our how question. How does he do this? And so answer A says he walks between their houses wearing a two-colored coat. B, he wears a yellow coat, and then he wears a red coat. So question B, be careful, because it says he wears a yellow coat and then he wears a red coat. C, he shows the two friends that his coat is both yellow and red. Or D, he makes a lot of noise when he is walking down a road. So remember what the question is. Make sure you're answering the question. The question is, how does Tricky Guy trick the friends into arguing? So you're answering that question. How does he trick them? Okay. Number 7, how do the friends learn they have been tricked? So there's another how question. Answer A, Tricky Guy changes his coat. B, Tricky Guy walks down the road. C, Tricky Guy shows them his whole coat. And D, Tricky Guy says to them, don't blame me. But remember, the question is, how do the friends learn they have been tricked? How do they find out, in other words, that they have been tricked? And if you'll remember, boys and girls, in the story, if you go back to page 153 and look at paragraph 9, that will help you to answer that question. So go back and read, find with the number 9 that numbers the paragraphs on page 153, and read that paragraph again, and that will help you to answer that question. And number 8 says, read the sentences from the story. That evening, Naby said to Tim, wasn't that a beautiful red coat the man was wearing today? No, Tim replied. It was a yellow coat. Okay, so the question is, what does replied mean in the sentence? When Tim said, or no, Tim replied, it was a yellow coat. If you go back and look at the first part of the sentences from the story, it says, that evening, Navy said to Tim, wasn't that a beautiful red coat that man was wearing today? He's asking a question. There's a question mark at the end of that sentence. And so think about what you're doing when you reply to a question. Is it A, you're answering it? Is it B, you're crying over it or you cried over it? C, you shouted over it? Or D, you thought over it? So what do you do when someone asks you a question? You reply to it, but you also do this. Okay, boys and girls, so I hope that this lesson has helped you today to answer your questions on page 154. And if you do have questions, please send your teacher a message. Have a great day.